Hello everyone. Today I'm introducing Specula, our open source framework that automates the end-to-end process of formal specification. We all know that formal methods like TLA plus are powerful, but manually writing specification is time-consuming and difficult. Specula solves this by synthesizing high-quality TLA plus specification directly from source code. Specula not only generates the spec, but also automatically validates its conformance with the code behavior. In Simpleton, you provide the source code and with minimal human assistance. Specula's four-step workflow generates a specification that is guaranteed to be consistent with your implementation. I will now demonstrate these four core steps using the raft implementation from etcd as our case study. Let's begin with step 1, code-to-spec translation. Specula uses large language models to analyze the source code and generate a high-level draft. As you can see, this draft outlines functions at different levels of abstraction and precisely describes the core logic. Next, the large language model uses the draft as a guide to translate the source code into a TLA plus specification. This translation creates a direct one-to-one mapping between functions in the code and actions in the spec. This is an important design choice. It prevents the large language model from inventing logic and overly simplifies the code instrumentation in step 4. The result is a translated specification, which may have a few small errors. However, simply feeding raw error message back to large language model is unreliable, as TLA plus errors can be misleading and models lack the necessary domain-specific expertise. So, Specula uses a retrieval-augmented generation process. We have built a knowledge base of common TLA plus errors and their solutions. Specula queries this database, iterating on the fixes until we have a specification with no syntax error. So now, Specula generates a translated spec in TLA plus with no syntax error. This brings us to step 2, TLA plus specification transformation. Our spec is syntactically correct, but remember, it is a direct translation of the code. This means it still contains control flow patterns that are common in code but problematic for formal models. For example, this variable is assigned multiple times within what should be a single atomic action. To resolve this, Specula built a control flow analyzer for the TLA plus language. It automatically analyzes and restructures the specification, solving this kind of issues. Specula will compile the TLA plus spec into an AST, building a control flow graph and performing static analysis. This allows it to fix problems like multiple variable assignments within a single action, handle internal function calls, and add missing unchanged statements. The final output is a specification that is properly structured and interpretable by the TLC model checker. This brings us to step 3, model checking and automatic correction. First, Specula has a large language model generates a TLA plus configuration file, the .cfg file, which defines what the model checker should evaluate. Then, Specula enters an automated debugging loop. It runs the TLC model checker, and the LLM automatically corrects any error found. This cycle repeats until the specification passes the model check. Last but not the least, Specula guarantees the specification conforms to the code as the final step. It starts from having the large language model generates a custom configuration file that provides a high-level summary of the specification's behavior. Then, through a static process, Specula generates file spectrace.tla and spectrace.cfg. These files enable the model checker to execute and validate traces, which is essential for comparing the specification against the system. To get the system set of this comparison, Specula leverages the one-to-one mapping established in step 1. Because each function in the code corresponds directly to an action in the spec, Specula can automatically instrument the source code at these precise points. By running the instrumented code, Specula captures an execution trace that reflects the system's actual behavior. These traces record the sequence of function calls and the corresponding state of each node, which is precisely what Specula will use for comparison during model checking. Specula then runs a script that converts these system trees into the format required by the TLA plus model. Finally, Specula executes the spectrace.tla file with TLC, which automatically validates the system's behavior against the model. If a discrepancy is found, it currently requires manual intervention, but our future work aims to automate this step as well. The result is a specification that is highly consistent with the implementation, modeling the core logic of etcd. Our project is now open source and is under active development. We are currently working on a more agentic system to make Specula even more robust and automated. If you find the project interesting, try it out and let us know. We can help you with. Thank you.